Welcome, everyone, to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm David Khourshid, also known as David the Piano, working at a coffee shop today.
That's all right. I'm in a closet today, but together we
Yeah,
are.
so if the audio quality is bad or whatever, just
Yeah,
let us know.
yeah. I'm trying to make some adjustments on the fly, but yeah, let us know in the chat if you're having trouble listening. But hopefully, this midday stream has some of our friends from around the world joining us. And what are we doing today, David?
So we actually did a challenge earlier this week, so I thought we would do something simpler this week, or this day, rather, especially because we're doing a shorter stream today. But there's two effects. Yeah, if you want to pull up the animation.
Yeah, let me get ready here. All right, and I'll share this in the chat as well. Glad you can join us, Beth. If that's how you pronounce it. Let's get the screen up here. All right. So yeah, right here I've got Discovery Tours Parallax Header Scroll by Nathan Riley. And this is one that was actually sent to me a while ago by a friend, David, from the Animation at Work Slack, and this David K. Piano, joined us or gave us this one as well. But describe a little bit of what we're looking at, David.
Yeah, sure. So, two main animations. The first one is this parallax effect, where the foreground is coming in faster than the background as you scroll the page. And the second one is the cool little zooming photo there. Now, I don't think we're going to have time to do any of the other crazy stuff, such as the drawing of the heading, things like that. But those are the two main effects that I wanted us to highlight today.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess we'll cover the nav bar section. That should be pretty simple.
Yeah, we should be able to do that one rather quickly.
Yeah.
Making some adjustments to the audio, but let me know if everything's coming through for you guys well in the chat. Yeah, sorry about the background noise. David is at a coffee shop, so that's unfortunately part of it. I've got some noise gating on him to eliminate most of it, but hopefully that's a little better for you guys. All right, so breaking down the animation a little bit in GIF Scrubber, yeah, we've got this nice parallax happening with some different image layers, along with that text expansion. Beautiful. And then this kind of content animation that we may not be able to get to today. Unfortunately, one of the limitations of streaming in the middle of the day is not being able to go as long or do as in-depth as we want. But here we go. So I've got the code pulled up here. We did just a little bit of prep work to make things easier. I did some layer slicing in the evening last night to get things ready. So we've got, for the parallax, we've got the background layer there, and then a midground layer, and a slightly more midground layer, and then the foreground with the girls there. Just pulled an image from Unsplash and sliced it up in Photoshop. And then I was actually able to use a technique with CSS mask that I can show you guys really quick. The three layers with the mountains are actually all the same image, but I've been able to use CSS mask to isolate just the specific mountains. So if you look down here, we've got mask size cover, mask position, and everything kind of matching the background settings. And then I've got individual masks for those. I can show kind of what that looks like. Wow, you can't really tell what that looks like, but if you see the black kind of outline there, that's the mountainscape that you're seeing. And so if we turn all these layers on here, we get the full scene, and it scales rather nicely with what we have going on. Hey, thanks for following, dude. Okay, so CSS-only Parallax. David, what's going on with that?
So it's actually interesting. A lot of people think that script to parallax, you could actually use a combination of and shifting perspective using scale in order to
hold on one second. I'm adjusting your audio, and I cut you out, I think. There you go. Talk again.
All right, so two things: transform, translate, C, and using scale. And also using perspective. So those three things are going to mimic a realistic parallax better than you could actually do with JavaScript because it's more natural. So,
Yes, and it's all kind of handled within the browser's own rendering, so we don't have to do a whole lot here. So basic setup, we'll do app and UI header and UI layer with transform style, preserve 3D. Yeah, sorry about the lag, everyone. Oops. Let's get that out of here. Transform style, preserve 3D. And then on our app, we have a perspective of 10 pixels, and that's our overflow container, so that's what's actually scrolling here. So now, all we need to do is adjust our layers. So L-4, let's do transform, translate Z, negative 10 pixels, and see how the background kind of disappears back there. That's quite awesome, but it's very far away. So let's scale that up really quick. And now you can see how the cloud line is moving in the background. So let's apply a similar treatment to the others. L3, L2, and we can see how all of those layers are now moving together. But that's not quite what we want. Scale 1.5. And then this, we can do negative 2 pixels with scale 1.25. And everything looks like it lines up. Yeah, there we go. Got that beautiful, beautiful technique. And that's really only a few lines of code to get such an amazing effect. I believe you can also apply this to the body or the HTML, whatever your scrolling element is, as long as you maintain that in kind of the same way. That should work.
Yeah.
And then let's see. I haven't heard that term before, Chris, but this technique has been documented in a few different places. I want to say Keith was the first to do that, And then here was a more recent article on it, both with some good examples of the technique and kind of breaking down a little bit more of the specifics. You don't have to use this for images. We can use this same technique for the content here, the titles, making those kind of slide in and all that. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to the animation and take a look. So now, one of the things that's nice about this animation is the way that the foreground kind of scales. But unfortunately, that's a little bit impossible for just CSS, would you say, David?
Yeah. Can't really mimic that. But we would have to listen to like scroll position and stuff like that, which actually is not that bad.
Yeah, we can do that. Set up really quick. In the chat, we got, oh, hey, Jens, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. He asked what we do for a job and if we do any back-end programming. Well, I do primarily front-end development at a company called L Creative, whose prop closet I'm actually in at the moment. And we do work for all sorts of companies around the world. And I do a little bit of a little bit of back-end development with primarily WordPress, but nothing too in-depth there personally. Other members of my team handle the more complex stuff.
Yeah, and I work at a small company called Microsoft. Not many people have heard of it. Definitely not in the news recently.
Yeah, I think I've seen it around.
Yeah, so I do.
Thanks for following.
I touch a bunch of things, really. Nothing really related to UI work. Well, sort of. We work on Visual Studio Live Share, which is an extension that allows developers from anywhere around the world to collaboratively code together. And it's really cool. You could have a project open and then share it with a coworker, and then he or she can go and jump into your code and actually start typing stuff and making edits along with you. So that's what I work on right now. So that does involve some back-end work.
Yeah, and that's very much along the lines of what we have here in CodePen collab mode, allowing us to be working on the same piece of code at the same time. But the VS Code live share is super cool in that you can just share your local repositories and be working on full sets like that. Let me see, getting the JavaScript set up here.
Cool. Just getting that content on the bottom. Yeah. So again, this is a quicker stream.
Right.
Maybe we're experimenting with times, and maybe we'll find a time where we can devote 2 hours during the day. I don't know, that might be a bit tough, but we'll see. Maybe we'll put it to a poll. Or maybe some really generous patron donors will just say, here's a salary. Just do this for the rest of your life.
I am all about that. If you would like to support Keyframers, you can do so by subscribing here on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you actually have a Twitch Prime subscription that you can use at no cost to you that greatly supports our show, helps us keep making awesome content like this. You can also pledge at patreon.com/keyframers to support us month to month.
All right. Should I get on to the image zooming effect?
Yeah. So I've got the JavaScript set up here. Let me explain that really quick, and then you can explain how you'll do the scale.
Okay.
So we've got our scrolling element here. We've added a scroll event listener, and then whenever the scroll updates, the style will be updated with a CSS variable equal to the scroll top divided by the height to see how far along in the scroll you are. And where are you working, David?
See if that works.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Why did I break something?
No.
I'm always breaking.
No, I don't get to play video games all that much, unfortunately. But hey, thanks for following. Glad you joined us. But yeah, sometimes I treat coding like a game.
It's honestly a lot more fun.
Right. It is very rewarding, I will say. Okay. Let's see. Were you going to do the scale, or do you need me to do that while you're working?
What, the CSS variable scale? You could go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So yeah, basically in summary, whenever the app is scrolling, he's setting the scroll CSS variable on the app element itself, and so he's going to use that variable to modify the scale. Oh wow!
Quick
looks like they're zooming off
of what's happening. The scroll variable is updating as we go, and then and so we want to add a little bit of bounding with that. So we can simply do that with.
It's supposed to zoom in, right?
Right.
Like get bigger. Okay.
Yeah, but we don't want it to get too big, and we don't want it to start at 0. So we're adding 1 so that it always starts at 1, and then 0.5 so that the zoom doesn't get too large. We could actually probably lower that down to like 3.5 so that the zoom is just kind of at a nice reasonable level. That feels super nice.
Yeah, I'm experimenting with. Here's one little trick with scroll. I don't know if it's just me or everyone else, but with scroll alone, it's very jerky, very janky, and that's just because of how often scroll updates. So if you add a little transition over here, you could really smooth that out. So that's what I'm doing over there. Just that 100 millisecond transform.
Hey, thanks for subscribing. So glad to have you.
Yeah. I think the heading's going the wrong way.
The heading going the wrong way? What do you mean?
Well, it's going up.
That's the way it's supposed to go. If you look at the.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah, if you look back at the original, it's like the camera's panning down.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So that works. Now let's jump into that image effects. Zooming one?
Yes. Okay. Oh, the actual content image?
Yes.
Okay. Question in the chat, is dash dash a unary operator, or is it denoting a var? That's to indicate a CSS variable there. That's all that does.
And I will link to a really helpful article about those CSS variables in case you want to learn more about them on CSS tricks. So.
Excellent.
Okay, all right, let's get to the zooming image. Now we've done similar things in the past, like regarding cropping.
Yes.
And doing that via using 2 layers, but I want to show you sort of a simpler technique that might or might not fit the bill, depending on what your animations are. And so that's going to be using scale instead. And we're going to be using inverse scales. So I'm on line 105.
Of the CSS. Yeah, we've got the handy indicator there showing where you're at. So that's been very nice. Thank you, Chris. All right, UI photo.
All right, so we're actually going to use CSS variables for this too, just because I like using them. So I'm going to do a scale, and let's say it's just 0.8. So the reason for this initial scale, transform scale there, scale, is to make the bigger image smaller, or sorry, the bigger container smaller. That's our first step. However, we want to then we want to zoom the inner photo, the inner image in, so that it doesn't look like the entire thing shrunk, but only the frame shrunk. And the way we can do this is by just inverting that scale. So to do that, transform scale calc 1 divided by their scale. So now it looks like the original size, but cropped, which that's exactly what we want. All right, so let's see. Let's go ahead and add just going to have a transition here. Right. So now just for simplicity, let's do this on hover. When we hover over the photo, we want to reset the transform. So transform to scale 1. In the image, we want to do the same thing. So what's going to happen is the container is going to scale up, the image is going to scale down, and they're both going to do it at the same time, and that's going to create the illusion that we're cropping it or uncropping it, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think our transform origins might be a little off.
That's a little weird. Let me see. Okay.
Make sure.
Photo. Yeah, the UI photo's a bit big. Let's see. It's auto. Nope, that's not working. 1 minute. You know what? It might be my CSS grid. So instead of doing auto one field road, let's do auto. Because what's
I adjusted the transform origin there. If it is.
Well, so it's not exactly the transform origin. What it is more is the UI photo deciding that it wants to be full height. And so we need to fix that somehow. All right, I got an idea.
Align self-center?
Nope, or maybe. Did that work?
Oh, yes.
It did? Okay, well, I just messed things up.
Yeah, align self, which we could do, is it flex or grid that you're using?
Grid.
Okay.
Sorry for the background noise, by the way.
Yeah, align self flex start works to get it the proper height, and then image display block, so that you get rid of that tiny bit of space at the bottom, and you get that beautiful effect.
Yeah, so the one weird thing, which might or might not bother you, is that it does a little jump, right? You see the little, like, it's sort of zooming in, but then zooming out.
Yeah.
To me, that's not a big deal, but there's a reason why this is occurring, and I could link you to an article where it shows exactly why that's happening. And that's because you can't really invert. Well, what you have to do is you have to invert the actual easy curve. It sounds really complicated. It is really complicated. So much so that, you know, it's not a matter of just like doing simple math in order to do that, but it just gets really, really complicated.
It's the
So,
kind of linear scaling doesn't actually scale how you'd expect. Is it that?
right. Yeah. So, and one way that we could show how like this could work in a perfect world is instead of the transition timing function to linear. So if we do that and you hover over the image again, then you're actually it still does a little bit of a block,
Yeah.
which it's, uh, and we'll keep it that way. That's a stylistic choice. But this is a really quick way to get an awesome zooming effect for image.
Yeah.
Now another
Zooming effect and clipping effect. If you leave off the transform scale on the parent, you get just a great image zooming effect that you'll see on a lot of sites for like galleries and things like that. And then if you want like a cropping kind of expansion effect, scaling the parent while inverse scaling the child is the way to go. And we got a question in the chat. Would a debounce on the scroll event make the animation too chunky? Yes, debounce would not be what you want to do here. Throttle or request animation frame would be more how you'd want to stagger that. But in this case, it shouldn't be a significant factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course these are things that you would tweak later. Like if you really want to do throttling, bouncing, and that's why I like talking about RxJS so much, is because you could do things like that. It's good. Just the text style here. Text style, textiles. Okay, so the last part of this is actually pretty fun. And sort of an illusion. It's the heading. It's called the keyboard I've seen. The header. And so if you hover over the top of the header, you'll see that it expands.
Yeah.
And so this is actually an illusion. I have no regrets. I will show you how that's an illusion. So I set the background color over here to like teal. And then go ahead and hover. So what's happening is these left and right items, they both have the same background color. And so that gives the illusion that the entire background is actually shifting. And so I'm doing this instead of scale because we don't want to do inverse scale, because that's going to require just doing the inverse scale on the child elements, which gets tricky. Since low.
Yeah, so they're just shifting in underneath the other items.
Yeah, and so now that we have a little bit of time, so I actually want to take a look at intersection observer. Famous last works. So full disclosure, I have not actually tried this yet, but how hard could it be?
It's very interesting, I will say.
Have you used it?
Yeah, it's not ideal. The way the syntax works, at least, it seems a little strange to me.
Yeah, wow, that's really unintuitive.
Yeah. One thing I was going to suggest trying is instead using our scroll variable.
Oh,
to translate, offset it, translate y.
okay, let's do it.
Count.
So yeah, we're using that scroll, and yeah. So I guess what we want to do is at a certain point, like let's say 100 pixels or so, we want it to be full width. Right? Or how do you want?
So let me see. Okay, that's not the direction it needs to go. Let's do 1 minus var scroll, and that will, in theory, and then transition none. Important. In theory, that'll get us what we want. 0.5. There we go. We got just a little bit of translating happening there.
Oh, at the bottom.
Yeah, and so we could actually also link the scale to that as well.
Yeah, you're right. So right now the scale's a little. So.
Well, that's just because of the transform scale 1, but we could instead just say scale 1 there for the hover event, and that. Well, I disabled the transition, so that's a bit of a problem, but you know, when in doubt with CSS, you can always just wrap it. There we go.
Okay, so scroll is a percentage, like just a review. It's a percentage of how far you scroll down, right? Or that's what you're setting it to.
Right.
So that's what that scroll top divided by.
Yes.
So it's going to be 0, well, past 1.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That works for our purposes. So I could actually adapt the header to also synchronize with that scroll too. That's what I'll do. Let's see. Also, what would be cool is if you all tell us in the chat from. That'd be awesome.
Oh, you meant other people?
Not you. I don't know your exact address.
It's available.
Right here. Let's see if that works.
Ooh, Sweden. See you there.
Cool. Yeah.
What are you working on?
So the top nav.
I'm doing the top nav expansion by scroll.
However, that's oh, wait a minute. It should be 0 first. I'm trying to use a CSS variable in order to adjust the one, two, that might work. Wow, you have the photo really popping there.
Yeah, working on some stuff. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, nice. I've got it. Oh, nice. Several from LA. Welcome. Cowabunga, dude. Is that what they do there? Oh yeah, David, check that out.
Cool. Yeah, it comes up and it zooms in, and it's really cool. It's not perfectly centered, but it's okay.
You can't center in CSS.
There's a way to do it. In fact, I think Chris Coyer outlined a couple ways, like the old way and the new way recently. So
That was actually my first article was on centering in CSS.
really,
Yeah, many moons ago. What year is it? 2018. Yeah, that would have been 5 years ago. Good gravy. All right, let me go back to the original here. Check it out. Yeah, I'd say it's lining up pretty well.
yeah, that's cool. You think you could do that to the button real quick? Just stalling for time as I try to finish this one part here.
You mean just having the button and the text come in?
Yeah.
In theory.
Oh, awesome. Scroll down now.
Ooh.
There
we go.
So I have some very simple JavaScript doing that. Basically, I'm adding an expanded modifier class, and so that's toggling whether it's full width or not.
Scroll
it's a nice little touch.
Greater than 1. I think it expands even sooner than that. Like it's pretty much right as they scroll. So yeah,
Okay,
like
fine.
0.5 or maybe even like 0.1 would do it. Sorry, not nitpicking.
Actually, yeah, that makes sense. 0.1, that works. That feels nice.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, that's most of the information already. Cool.
Yep. Just adding a few niceties there. And yeah, with that, like, or with that kind of text reveal effect, that would be a good case for an intersection observer that adds a class that then triggers, an opacity change. Actually, let's see. Okay, we might have enough time here. Let's get a little bit more JavaScript involved.
Where are you going to be adding?
In the JS. So I'm gonna. Oh man, where is it? I'm gonna find the right library. Join us now as I search GitHub live. Aha, here it is.
I feel like the photos should be a lot bigger.
Yeah, it could be.
Let's see if I can change that real quick.
No, unfortunately, you can't switch between our screens. I'm just doing it manually with mine. Well, actually, we're not even seeing David's screen at all. We just see what he's typing.
Oh, I'm not typing.
Oh, yeah.
But this is also why I finished product because for all of you to see. why I talked through.
All right.
Because honestly, to me, it's much more important how you think about the code than thought process.
Right.
So we might do a few how to think about these animations so that you're not thinking about the code, but rather it's a general.
Yes. So let's see. Okay, I don't know that scroll out is working at the moment. I'll have to get on to, I don't know, I think I've got to initialize it. Hold on. There we go. Okay.
What are you doing?
So I'm using a library from Christopher Wallace, Notorious B1T, called Scroll Out, adapted from some code I'd written a few years back. Let me see if it's working. Yeah, cool, it's working now. I'll link that in the chat because you should definitely check it out. It is very handy. It's only like a kilobyte, yeah, minified, and that gets you some data attributes that change on scroll. So what we'll do is data scroll equals out, opacity 0, and then what that should do is change those. Data scroll, transition, opacity, 1 second, linear. I did say Notorious B1T. Let's see. That does not appear to be working. What is wrong? Oh, I believe I'm not setting the actual scroll container correctly. Reading documentation on the fly. Scope. Aha, that's what it is.
Wait, what are you trying to do again?
I'm triggering just some animation on those. We're attempting to. I don't know that this is working at the moment. Data scroll. Yeah, sorry. Well, the intention there is that this data scroll attribute that you see will change from out to in whenever the element is revealed. And I think right now, oh, thank you for following. I think right now I'm just not setting the scope correctly, or that may not be detecting the scroll just right. It's still in beta, so don't worry about it.
It's okay.
All right.
Well, yeah. Want to wrap this up?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and proceed into the section of the show known as Keyflections. This is where we will just cover all the techniques we used in a brief format. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask. So let's take a look at the original animation here really quick. Discovery Tours Parallax Header Scroll by Nathan Riley. So as you scroll, you've got this nice parallax effect happening, and then the header expansion along with this content reveal down below. So you want to talk about the parallax first here, David? Or
That's all you.
I can. Okay. So what we have is 4 different layers. A few of them using the same image, just with a CSS mask, and then we're using 3D transform plus perspective on the scrolling container. Transform style preserve 3D, and then the further back layers are, the slower they move based on the scroll. So the very far back cloud layer is -10 pixels, and then we scale it up so it still appears to be the same size. If you remove the scale, you can see how the layers actually are kind of rendering in 3D space, and that effect makes a little more sense. And so with that, as you scroll, it gives you that nice overlapping effect. And then our kind of zooming effect that's happening is just down here. We've got a scroll event listener on our app, and we're using that to set a scroll CSS variable showing how much the current page has, or how much the current element has scrolled as kind of a percentage variable. And then we use that here in transform so that the scale is being changed by that CSS variable. And would you like to talk about the image reveal effect?
Sure. So it's actually a lot simpler than it looks. 2 things going on. There's 2 containers. One is just a div. Div contains in the div scale in. So you scale down. So I did like 0.08. And at the same time, the image you scale up. So 1 divided by 0.8 is 1.25. That's going to that the photo is not size. So when you translate both of those, or when you transform both of those to scale 1, it's going to look like it's just zooming in, but the image is not changing, like it's uncropping. And so we're just using those CSS variables in order to modify those values.
Yeah, and it's happening with the scroll now, but you can do this on hover for gallery kind of effects that are really cool. Also with the scroll variable, I've got the container of that image translating Y off the screen so that it kind of pops in. Could have done this with the parallaxy, same like translate Z kind of effect, but it works well here for the for just pushing it off screen and then revealing that scroll. All right, talk to us about
the other tiny thing. Yeah, so that's also a tiny thing. It's actually parts here. The left part, right part, the center part. In the left and right part, I'll do an outline solid. Those are actually translating in. So the left part is translating right 50%, and the right part is translating to the left 50%. And when you zoom down, or sorry, scroll down a certain amount, which is more than 1/10 of the page, it goes to full width. And those are those expanded modifier classes that are doing that. And so that's just removing so that it goes back to me. So it's a nice little.
Yeah. And that works out quite well,
Yeah.
I'd say. It's a very, very cool effect. You could do that on hover as we initially had, though that might be a little disorienting for trying to get your mouse over something. But as far as like having a nav overlaid on top of a photo, that creates a really good effect. All right. Well, I think
Awesome.
those are the basics of it. We have to wrap up here, but we'll go into the outro real quick. You've been watching Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. if you've enjoyed this episode and would like to see more from David and I, there are many ways you can support us. You can subscribe and participate in the live streams every Thursday here at twitch.tv/keyframers. You can like and subscribe at youtube.com/keyframers, where we'll have the recorded video of this available soon. You can also tweet at us and spread the word at twitter.com/keyframers. Or you can show your support at patreon.com/keyframers. And we'll have some exclusive content and things there as well that you can benefit from if you become a patron. There was a question in the chat real quick. Do you need JavaScript for that, for the scrolling header toggle? Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know of a way you could do it without with just CSS because of the scroll nature of it.
All right, but yeah, accept submissions. Send us your suggestions. Tweet us at Keyflections, or I don't know, email us if you have our email somehow. Yeah, just hit us up on the animation Slack. Say we want to see you make this because we.
That's right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Until next time, hasta luego and amigos.
Yes.